I am so excited to share this video with you. It is something I never thought would ever happen. And so I'm just really thrilled about it. It is an interview with the band Gentle Giant about their 1976 album Interview, which has recently been remixed by Steven Wilson. And we actually have all of the living members of Gentle Giant on the same call. Ray Shulman, who was the vocalist, Kerry Minnear, who played keys, John Pugwash Weathers, who was the drummer, and Gary Green, who was the guitarist. And because I was able to speak to Ray Shulman before he passed away last year about the Steven Wilson remixes of Interview, he's also featured in the beginning. So it's amazing to see all 5 of these guys on the same screen, on the same call. And then we have Mike Keneally, who's a super Gentle Giant expert / nerd / enthusiast, helping me with the interview. So, not a lot more to say than that. I just wanted to set things up, and I hope you enjoy it. All right, let's dig in. It's a long conversation, so I'm going to be releasing it in 2 or 3 videos. So enjoy.
I think, actually, to my ears, I think it's slightly tighter on Interview, the next album. Although the music it goes a bit more obscure, but I think I'm just because Steven's also he's kind of done preliminary mixes for Interview as well, which would be eventually. But and when he sent me those, I thought this band's pretty tight. You know, it's like, and I didn't feel that with Freehand particularly. It felt a little bit not quite under rehearsed, but there's certain things we might have picked up if we'd have played it a little bit more before the recording. I don't know.
It's interesting that what Ray said actually, because he's right about the time frame of writing and recording the album. I personally wished that we had more time to write and record the album than we did, because we just come off a long tour. And I think we wrote this album in a matter of 2 to 3 weeks. And honestly, I think had we had perhaps another few weeks to think about the music and the lyrics, I think it would have been probably an even better record and probably better compositions. But I think it turned out very well because we were playing at such a high standard at that point, because we were, as a band, I mean, all the guys here, we were as tight as hell, because we've been playing together for 4 or 5 years, or 4 years together, and touring non-stop. So the tightness was never a question. And in fact, I thought, as Ray said, we were extremely tight. But honestly, I think I would personally have preferred, would have liked to have more time to think about where we went from Freehand to Interview than we did.
Yeah, I think we were. I think we were, like they say, match fit. We were up to speed. It's like we've been playing in the Premier League all season, and we were well in our game. It seems to me like the concept of the Interview thing kind of came sort of rushed somehow a little bit. Although it's a great idea, I love it, but it seemed like it may not have been the first idea we would have come up with had we had more time. So I think is what I'm saying. But I still love the idea of the Interview and just the incomprehensibility of our answers all the time to Phil. It summed up kind of our frustration.
As a concept, I thought it was a very good idea, and the lyrics that Derek came up with, another show, and the Interview itself, and that kind of stuff, telling the story almost as much of a story as The Power and the Glory, came out great, and we were playing hot at that time. Like, another show flows like nobody's business. It just cooks from note one. I love it.
Yeah, I do.
What do you love about it, Kerry?
It's kind of a bit slightly weird, but it's really frantic and confident, and there are grabs all over the place from Mr. JP that are just stunning towards the end, especially just little grabs that you don't expect, and I loved it.
It seemed like it kind of captured the spirit of being on the road. That sort of frantic, everything's whirling around you, and you have got no control over it, and you're just reacting to everything, and you can't, you're just headlong up snowball going downhill.
I'm curious, why were you guys rushed? Like, why did you only have 2 to 3 weeks to write and produce the whole album? Why was it, I last time with Ray, I think we talked about how studio time was expensive, but why did you go to the studio with nothing prepared or limited music prepared? Because there's shots of Kerry like writing sheet music out, looking like he's scrambling in the studio to compose.
Yeah, well, that was design.
That was.
Yeah. I still don't know why the band let me get away with that.
Because you needed material and you were ready and able to provide it.
But it's so not a band. It's so not a band piece. It
is now.
Kerry, I just listened to it for the first time personally. Sorry, for in a long time, and honestly, it blew me away. I just couldn't believe. You're right. It's not about. I mean, who would do that kind of thing? It's insanity, actually, but brilliant insanity.
Oh,
it's beautiful because
if
that's the first thing that came out of you. It's like, we have to do something. We have to write and record something. All right, I'll write something, and that's what happens. It's fantastic.
It's just percussion, correct? That was all percussion and vocals, nothing else.
Yeah.
But the vocals were great to do. We all took part in the vocals. Had these little, as to drift by and all of that little stuff, all the jigsaw parts fitting together. That was the fun.
I thought everything may come to me. I only have my hay. I thought everything may come to me. I only have my hay.
I thought everything may come to me.
Oh,
that thing that all piles on top of each other. It's incredible.
What?
All that I might. All that I might. All that I might. All that I might.
What kind of vocal was that?
I know. It's almost
Is that all that I might? Because the lyrics aren't in the
Yeah.
thing. It's all that I might.
Yeah.
Okay.
All that
Yeah.
I might.
That's so strange.
So I have my hot take is that's my favorite Gentle Giant song, and everyone who looks at me says, "What's the matter with you?"
I think
Even the band.
I think that's a really
No,
beautiful melody.
I listened to it the other day, and it is absolutely outstanding. The new mix of it is
stunning.
just amazing. It's an
Yeah,
I
experience.
agree, John.
Much deeper.
Well, it's not just weird. It's
what you
emotionally
did
very
there.
affecting. The lyrics are very trenchant, and anybody can relate to them. Especially as you grow older, you relate to them more. And the music supports the mindset every step of the way. I think it's amazing.
Okay,
Are we
Gary
done,
did have
isn't
something
it?
to say there, so
It's gone.
all.
It's gone, buddy.
Come on,
I had
guys, I'm out with it.
I don't know what it was now.
No.
Really, I don't. Don't look at me like that.
Anyway, I thought I was listening to it, and I just was scratching my head, saying, "What kind of band would record this song?" And put it on a tape and actually put and produce it on vinyl at that time. But it is it's a fascinating piece. I mean, I have to say, I love it. You're right, John. I love it. I think it's superb.
Well, it justifies its place on the album because it's brilliant. but it's also it's funny that that's what you'd put on an album to be on the heels of Freehand, which was, you know, a lot of people would think we need to capitalize this and make the next album more accessible.
Yeah, this will do it.
Let's talk about the opening song, Interview, because I was reviewing it with my friend Adam the other day, and we were just clicking through the song, and everywhere the needle stops, it sounds like a different song. And then there's it's just such a powerful composition. It does work together, but I'm curious, like, were you working in pieces at the time? And can you recall any stories of the songwriting around that one?
I think, yeah, I learnt it more or less as a piece, including the weird little staccato clavinet stuff. So I think we got a vision of what the whole thing. I don't think we did it in bits, did we?
No.
We didn't use click tracks.
Oh, no.
I think we must have done drums, bass, and a few gash instruments first, I think, and then built it.
The usual approach.
I would think.
Yeah.
It's a long time ago.
It was only design, wasn't it, with a click track?
Oh yeah.
Only design.
Yes. Yeah. Probably. Yeah.
Probably.
But not interview. Interview.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's all right. Interview was more or less a piece I could sort of play.
Yeah.
Sort of play through
And
as a
did
basis.
very well.
Where did the cowboy piano, the upright, bump, 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 bump. Like, where did that come from, and how did everyone give that the thumbs up? Because it's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Well, you've got to look at 4 crazy guys here, so. No, Kerry, you remember how we, or do anyone remember how we came up with that sound?
Oh, the sound?
That
was easy.
At the minute.
Yeah.
It was two
the piano
pianos.
sound.
It was 2 pianos, but one was a track slowed down on the
Right.
vary speed.
That's right.
That's great.
You're right, John. You're exactly correct.
It's gone. I'd love
So does that mean that you, Kerry, had to play it an octave higher at twice the speed?
No, I'm sure not.
Okay.
There's a way around it.
No, the tape machine was slowed down. The recording
Okay.
machine was
Oh,
slowed
okay.
down or sped up, whichever,
Okay.
to
So I
create
played really slowly.
to create
That-
an
Double tracked.
out of tune piano.
Tuneness.
Yeah.
It's a very good sound.
And what are do you have any reactions to Steven Wilson's remix, of hearing this? The new video came out, which is really cool. And, is the remix, like, opening your ears to anything new on the album or this track in particular?
Well, it sure did to me. I could hear the actual content of the piano solo, which was always, to me, on the original mix, the improvised piano solo, more of a texture. And in this mix, I was really able to hear the content of the notes, and I found that to be the case across the album. Really, it's a fuller sound, timbrally. So I'm getting more of the harmonic content of a lot of stuff, which I love.
Yeah.
I feel like
Yeah, and the
learning
sort of
about
spatial
this stuff.
definition is enhanced too. I was listening to it and playing guitar along with it just before I came on, and it came on the new mix. I was stunned at how kind of clear the sort of the field of the sort of visual field of where everybody is in it was. Wow. And the bass is.
Anthony, it's sorry, guys.
Sorry, nice.
No, it's interesting because you showed Ray talking about the tightness of the band, and I think what Stephen has done has embellished what we felt as a band playing and recording this album. We were tight. We were really tight, and we were coming off as I said, touring, and as a band, we worked very, very hard, as we all know. We never took time off. I mean, we should have probably taken a little more at that point, but we were tight as hell. But I think he's brought that out on this album. And in fact, listening to it again after all this time, I agree with you, Mike. I think he gives some of the instruments more space, so that you can actually hear. Again, Kerry solo in Proclamation, various other instruments much more clearly, and then you can hear the album as a tighter album. Again, we talked about design. I really hadn't listened to that track for a long time, and I listened to it, several times recently, and it just blew me away. It's just an insanity. I don't know any other band in existence that would dare to even think about doing that kind of song, but actually, but it blew me away, honestly. And this is I'm subjective, of course, but objectively, I can be objective, and I'm shocked and happy that we did it.
It's a totally valid piece of really good art that you guys created there. It's just great. And to me, it feels of a piece a little bit with Inmate's Lullaby, which is also an unbelievably effective piece of music emotionally. And it's the combination of percussion, solely percussion orchestration with the vocals on top of it. It's a very unusual texture. It's certainly not a rock texture, which is one reason why you'd never hear another band do it.
It's that guy's fault.
Which guy are you pointing to?
Well, in my window, it's Mr. Minnear there.
In mine, you're pointing to John.
And then John. Let's do my finger to John. JP.
Yeah, I think this remix kind of highlights that John's an unsung hero on the drums here. Some of his fills, his playing is so strong, and some of his fills are really wild. Mike and I were just listening to them before we started.
There's a fill that just made me laugh with glee at about the 2-minute mark on Interview. I actually asked Anthony if he could cue it up. But yeah, go ahead.
I know the one.
Killer.
It's kind of
so good.
Stumbling, isn't it?
But it's beautiful. Everything is placed
correct.
perfectly. There's nothing out of control about it. No. But it's so ingenious and fun.
Yeah, John Killer, honestly.
No,
I wish there were drummers like you around these days.
Searching for the downbeat.
Keep playing, it's coming.
Gary, aren't you the one that said you count out the Gentle Giant music as 1, 1, 1, 1? Like every beat's the one?
Yeah, mostly. I was never able to learn anything by counting, particularly, except when there was an obvious thing, this has to happen here. But mostly, they're phrases. They all are phrases which make sense in themselves, and this phrase follows on with this phrase, and there's the piece of music. That's kind of how it fits together for me, in my mind. All music, not just ours, but whatever I'm listening to, it's these pieces that are locked together.
Yeah. Are these live basic tracks for the most part on the record? Are we hearing a lot of live basic track performances?
I think so. You mean like first take, kind of bass and drums sort of thing?
Yeah.
So good.
I think so.
Yeah.
We always try to do that, and we've said it loads of times, that you try and capture a take within the first 1 or 2, maybe 3, and if it isn't happening at that point, then you've got to break a little bit, take a break, coffee, something, and come back to it fresh, because that spontaneity of not quite knowing it is that there's the magic right there. You've got to capture it. So us being really informed as players, because we'd been touring so much, really helped that. You know this, Mike. When you've got your chops ready to go, you're on top of your game and you can do it straight away. And that's what we tried to capture, and a lot of times did, I think, on interview.
Just as a contrast, how much time would you say the composition of the Freehand album took compared to how long you had to write the interview album?
Kerry?
It doesn't.
I think longer. I think
Months.
we had I think we had a little bit some more time.
But it's I mean, I hear what you're saying, Derek, but it's also just in terms of albums being like snapshots in time of a band. This album is a real snapshot of how on fire you were, that under the gun with 2 weeks to write an album, this is what you do, and it's all very vital stuff. And they're all authentic expressions of something, and they're maybe more unfettered because there wasn't time to really go to town on analyzing them and refine them. And it's all still beautiful stuff. It's just different, but there's not another album like it in the catalog, and it's really valuable for that, I think.
Kerry, I think we wrote. I mean, you wrote, and Ray, and wrote Freehand. A little it was a little longer than interview, I believe. I mean, we had at least 6. Go ahead. You remember?
Yeah, no, I think usually Ray and I used to try and be apart from each other, getting ideas for at least 2 weeks before we consulted one another or showed our humble offerings until it was kind of boosted with enthusiasm from that point as you realised you were on the right track. So 2 weeks of separation, I think, before we cooperated,
and then after that,
2 weeks. Yeah, with you involved quite often as well, just getting lyrical ideas.
Yeah,
and so 4, and then rehearsals after about 4 weeks.
Yeah, so we had more time, I think, with Freehand. I think it's probably, I would say, double the time, if I remember rightly. In fact, actually, I was reminded of that. And just for everyone else, Paul Northfield was in touch with me a couple of months ago, and actually, you guys, I just want to tell you, because I haven't heard from him for God knows how many years, and this is pre-Ray's passing, and he actually wrote me a note saying, "Thank you for giving him the shot of being the engineer. This is his first gig as a real engineer."
Yeah.
And of course he went on to me and Ray, we brought him over to Canada, and he found his life partner, his wife there, and then went on to co-produce Rush, Police, etc., etc. But he wrote me this beautiful little note saying thank you for giving me a shot on interview. So
Cool.
I just want to share that with you guys.
That's nice to hear.
That's nice.
Great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, Paul was. I mean, we abused. I mean, Gary and abused him quite substantially. You could hear on the album.
Yeah, I abused him. No, he made a great cup of tea, did Paul?
Which is actually on the album as we hear.
Yeah,
Right. I never knew what was going on there. Okay.
well,
that's
it was
great.
it was feigning a little bit, I must say, on my part. But I remember we're going into the interview, so I was trying to recreate the atmosphere of the studio, which was that we would normally shout to Paul to grab us some coffees. So, Paul, grab us some coffee, will you? And because Ray, you see, only drank coffee when we wanted to have tea, and it was always, get some tea, Paul, and coffee for Ray. It was always that.
So the sessions that or the session that you did to produce the interview material that's threaded throughout the album, was there much more of that than what is heard on the album? Like, are there outtakes from the interview session?
I would guess so. I don't remember hearing a whole unedited reel of it though, but there must have been more. Would Stephen Wilson have any access to that?
A journalist.
Yes. Yeah.
He was one of the very few British journalists that actually thought that the band was relevant. For the most part, the British press, didn't
Ignored
really
us.
take to the band.
Yeah.
Because several reasons. I think just basically, I think my feeling, and this is, I think it was because the holdover of the Shulman Brothers band hanging over, being a pop band and then morphing into this prog or whatever we were, kind of like was a millstone around our necks. So
Wow.
these poor guys got the brunt of it as well, and the British press thought we were fake or irrelevant or pretentious.
Yeah, they seemed like to hold a grudge, didn't they? That because you had been Simon Dupree, that you could never be anything else other than that.
Correct.
Well, that's a British trait, I think. Kind of resenting someone else's achievements. So.
It's also a journalism take to some degree, and I'm sorry that you guys had to deal with that.
We didn't bother. We played played in Italy and Germany and Europe and North America and to hell with Britain. But but it came back and it was okay. But Phil was one of the very few advocates, I think, of the band. So
in print he had demonstrated that he was
absolutely
interested and sympathetic to you guys.
Well, he came and spent I don't know if it was a week or a few days with us in the studio. Judy, my wife, had just come over to Britain, and we hadn't gotten married then, but we're about to. So we were all in this sort of romantic mood, whilst the album was being made. And Phil Sutcliffe was there with us, reporting on everything that happened, and he held out like a trooper. It was great. But he had championed us a lot in the press, in the paper Sounds, and always wrote nice stuff about us. So thanks, Phil.
John, you've been a little quiet. I know you're such a storyteller. What comes to mind when you think about this album? What are some of the inside stories or some of your moments of awe? I know that you have great respect for the compositional capabilities of everyone in the band, so I'd just love to hear some highlights you might have.
Oh, thank you very much. I think the highlight was, to go back to it, design. If I remember rightly, this could be the one where Kerry was out in the studio with this vast array of percussion, and we actually started recording bit by bit because nobody else was playing the percussion except for Kerry. He had it all down in dots. So we started recording it. Yeah, started recording it one instrument at a time, but didn't play because it was all done with a click track, and he was doing it on dots. We didn't play back what had been recorded because we knew it was perfect, and we only played it back right at the very end when everything was done, every single part. And we got Kerry back in, and that was the first time we heard the whole thing as an entity.
Wow.
Was it design? I believe it was.
That was good.
It could only be design, couldn't it? Right, no.
Kerry, did you play all the percussion parts, or every one of them? I can't remember.
I can't remember. No.
What about the Jaws harp?
I played that.
You did that?
No. Yeah.
I played the Jaws harp. That I do
That's what
know.
I thought.
Who did?
I thought it was you guys.
Gary.
Yeah.
Well, there's no tips on that.
Is that the only thing you play on that song?
Sorry?
I get confused with the other one that was percussion on an earlier album.
Yeah,
Inmate's Lullaby?
which I think is
And we all did
Inmate's Lullaby. Yeah.
That was all of us.
That was all of us,
yeah. But I think the Jaws harp, you guys. I was just trying to remember, and I thought it was you. I wasn't sure.
That's great.
So it was, right?
Yeah. I'm sure it was. Well, there was that whole little
That's
percussion.
such a great
sort
sound
of,
in the middle of all that.
Yeah.
It is, yeah. Nice.
No, I mean I have it. This isn't. This isn't designed, but I remember for Inmate's Lullaby, Kerry was playing a timp part and needed to drop the note, I think, on the timp after it's down, and it needed.
Oh, yeah.
I had to lay down on the floor, holding the timp pedal, so it wouldn't go beyond the spot that's the note. You know, down instead of down. So I had to stop it going further than the required note, and I remember laying full on the floor while Kerry's playing above me. That's pretty funny.
Oh, yeah, we were a very, very physical band.
Thank you for your service, Gary.
Thank you, sir.
Switching things on and off and laying down under instruments.
Oh yeah, I mean, I wish there had been video camera of us mixing stuff back in the day. Everybody's hands were over the desk, switching, reaching across,
jumping over
pressing
each other.
buttons, panning, smacking Paul, all that stuff.
That's great. I
Wonderful.
loved it. Yeah.
Kerry, any stories you can recall during the recording of Interview? Anything notable for you, or even listening to the remix? Anything that stands out?
It's lovely. I particularly like Empty City.
Yeah, me too.
As a track, because it's Ray and it's so unpianistic, and yet so melodic, and so it's got a lot of heart in it. I do remember when Gary mentioned doing the timp. I remember him helping me with the harp.
Right.
You remember that, Gaz?
Yeah.
On Way of Life back in.
That's right.
In the glass house.
Yep.
And somebody left a harp in the studio, and I needed an accomplice again to press the different pedals to retune the harp while I plucked it. And so little episodes like that, and finding a harpsichord that had been left in the studio to acclimatise, and we used that in something.
Is that on I Lost My Head? Is that a harpsichord or a clavichord?
A clavichord.
That's a clavichord.
Yeah.
Well spotted.
It's beautiful.
Isn't it? It's
Yeah.
I noticed this small thing when I listened to the new mix of I Lost My Head. After the clavichord bit leading into the big end band chorusy thing verses, it comes in with, on the earlier versions, with guitar and piano together playing the main line. But in this new mix, Steve Wilson, I hear there's an organ in there, which I don't recall having been there before. And it was something perhaps that we tried and left on a track and didn't erase it. And Steve Wilson's found it and thought, oh, maybe that should be there. And so there's this organ coming in as well. So that's new for me.
Yeah.
Good listen, guys. That's yeah.
There is that. There's also small noticeable things like different reverbs on instruments as they come in and out.
Yeah.
Dealer's
There's
choice,
also a huge amount
of. Sorry, Mike?
On the song Timing, there's a huge amount of lead vocals that were previously muted on the original mix.
Yeah.
Did you notice that, Derek? There's a lot more of your singing and your lyrics on Timing now. So I mean, you were consulted on these things, right?
No, I wasn't. But
Oh, okay.
but actually, it's no. Look, whatever worked. I mean, I was never. We were never. And you're the one thing I think you're saying here. We were never any of us egotistic about who was in front of each other, except as Kerry said and Gaz said, we were all mixing and we push our little fader, up a little more so that we get a little more, of each other. But no, I think there was a little more vocal clarity, I would say, on this.
Not just that, but
mix.
entire verses and lyrics that didn't even appear on the original version of the song have been reinstated. So parts that were originally instrumental now have lyrics over them, just in the song Timing. And it's fantastic, actually.
Wow.
It's a whole. It changes the song in a great way.
You're correct, actually. And that's. we, one thing that, as you already know about the band, we get bored very easily. So if too much vocals or too much guitars or too much, we give you a 4-bar break and sorry, you're not going to go past that.
It's more of a song in the new version. It actually has more like song form, and you can trace the narrative of the vocal better. It's great.
Yeah, so I guess the band shut me down when when the mix was done. Okay, enough of Derek. We've heard enough.
Well, it's everybody can hear it now, so you can claim that.
But that was the good thing about all Steve's work, is that you can trust him. Yeah. So if he found something that was effective, he'd bring it out, and he improved, I think, quite a lot of the bottom end. I think Ray was quite a humble chap, and quite often things were a bit bass light, and Steve's put all that right. He's put more weight in some of the drumming, some of the bass, and
this is bringing out what was actually played. I'm sure
that's right.
You listen to the bass tone on the song Interview. It's just brutal. It's massive. It's amazing. It's one of the best bass tones ever. And it's that much better on this new mix, but I'm sure it sounded like that in front of Ray's amp also, It's
Yeah. But if he found a gash bit of a solo, there's some of the solos are different that he's found, because we used to have several goes at it and leave the old ones, and he's found them and dubbed them in, and it's been a great advantage, really.
I was hearing little. It's in timing. There's this really angular tritone guitar line. All that stuff. Underneath it, there is I think it's an electric piano playing sort of a counterpoint to it. There's those piano arpeggios, the acoustic, but there's also an electric piano that's playing in unison with the guitar, but it's a different harmony. It's a beautiful harmony. It was really underplayed on the original mix, and when it came up in the new mix, it was just, it really brought a new meaning to that section that was like, I felt like I understood it more,
I think sometimes some of those things are stuff that we left on the tape erroneously and perhaps didn't want them in the final mix. And yet they still exist, and there they are. But which is fine, It's nice to see kind of slightly different face on some of these things.
Yeah. I mean, at a certain point, you'd say, okay, maybe it wasn't your exact intent, but what are remixes for? I think one of the most interesting thing about a remix is just what's on the tape. Things that we never knew were there.
It shouldn't be totally slavish to the original, but. He has kept totally the identity of the songs and the integrity of them, and I really like them. I've got to say, that's my 2 cents.